right now, what we'd like to do is go into the case study that Greg put together to really highlight this stuff, right? GC, you want me to pull this thing up for you?
Yeah, go ahead. It's free to actually see some numbers here. I know this has been a really exciting call. Let's dive into some numbers here and give the people what they want.
Yeah, speaking of exciting, I know this is your favorite thing to dive into real quick.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the whole show. Anytime that we're putting numbers together, everybody should do their own due diligence. You guys know this stuff, right? We are not financial advisors. We are not offering financial planning advice. Do your homework. And with that, I think we jump into the most exciting part.
Let's jump in, baby.
All right. Well, even before we get into the numbers here, let me just kind of like take you back to where my headspace was when I was putting this case study together. I see a big problem in our country, and I see a big problem, and I see a lot of apathy and not a whole lot of solutions. And the big problem for everybody in our country is that it's been really hard to retire comfortably for a while, but it's going to get a lot harder for everyday people to retire comfortably when we all want to retire, whether that is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now. It's going to be harder. I think if you're a 30 to 40-year-old person right now, you might be thinking about retiring in, let's say, 20 years or 25 years. Right now, people who get to retire get the benefits of Social Security. But if you ask anybody who's 30, 40 years old, do they think Social Security is going to be around or be like it is right now? The answer is a resounding no, because there's no way to fund it currently. So just comparing apples to apples, we who are trying to retire in, let's say, 20 years or 25 years are going to have a harder job doing it if Social Security is not there, right? You may be 50 or 60 years old, and you may be saying to yourself, well, I want to retire in 10 years or maybe 15 years. Well, Social Security may be around for you, but it also might not be. And regardless, we know healthcare costs are going up at a really high rate. So it's going to be harder for our 50 to 60-year-old folks to be able to retire than it is right now, just simply because healthcare costs are super, super high and rising at a fast rate. And folks who are maybe 70 or 80 years old, we have a lot of clients that start investing in rental properties in their 70s and 80s, many who are on the call today and who are with us each show. And you might be saying, you know what? Right now, I want to retire. I am retired, but I can't count on the consistency of the income. And so that's a real challenge. Rental properties can obviously help with that, but what they also do is they can solve for your future generations. They can solve some of these problems that are coming as well. No Social Security, rising healthcare costs. So I was starting to think about the problem that we have as a country and what can I do about it today? What decision can I make today to set myself up for success, whether that is 5, 10, 20 years down the road? And so that's the mindset that we put this case study together with. I'm going to start small here and just show the effects of just one turnkey rental property with the normal pay down strategy that people may have. Okay, and we're going to kind of create a baseline, and then we're going to show the amplified effects of what C3X can do for you. So what you see on the screen here is a JWB, a turnkey investment property. And the assumptions here that I built all of these numbers based off of is just what many people are doing today, right? They are using conventional financing. This assumption is using 40% down with a 6.125% fixed interest rate, 30-year loan. It can go up and down for that, but that's what I chose for this example. And so for this specific property, which is a currently available JWB home, the market value of the price is $265,000. So for those who are maybe not JWB clients yet, that's really normal for a JWB home. The median home sales price in Jacksonville is about $360 right now. So you want to be below the median there, and that's kind of where we live. The initial investment and the down payment on this one would be $106,000. For a typical JWB home, your minimum down payments and out of pocket is going to be about $75,000, but it can go up from there. So for this example, about $106,000. And for this property, your annual cash flows about $1,200 a year. Okay, so $1,200 a year, about $100 a month. That's what Shively and I were talking about earlier. When you buy a rental property, it's not about the cash flow that's going to change your life day one or even for the first few years. What are you going to do with that $100 a month? And that's really where C3X, shines. So let's go to the next screen here, and we're going to talk about how normal, if people do want to use that $100 to pay down the debt, how they would go about it. Well, Many people just make the minimum monthly payments. And there is a reason to do that as well. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing, but if you want to reach your financial goals and get that income as quick as possible, you're probably going to want to use that cash flow to accelerate the payments. So if you just took that, call it $100 a month, and you use that to accelerate the payments, you would drop that payment, that mortgage payment would be paid off 6.5 years faster just by doing what we would call the average way of going about it. So one property cuts 6.5 years right off the bat. Now, truth be told, that's not rocket science. Anybody could have said that. So what we're doing here is just creating a baseline. But Pablo, go ahead and click the next button there because I want to shed some light. Well, actually, yeah, let's go there. What I wanted to shed some light on here is the pay down of the principal is only half of the beauty of this thing. Because what's also happening for rental properties is that your rents are going up year after year after year. And when you think about the compounding effects of rents going up year over year over year, and you also see your loan balance going down and ultimately getting paid off, you start to create an asset that will start to make up for the lack of Social Security, or will start to overcome some of the additional increased expenses coming from healthcare costs. I mean, Pablo, look at this right here. If you just did this, which is not C3X, what you would have created is an income stream of, what's that, it's about $2,200 a month of cash flow just from one rental property. You own three of them. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I'd love to be getting 6-7 grand a month in cash flow a month. That sounds wonderful.
There you go. And that's just the normal debt pay down approach. So the thought here and the key here is it's not cash flow today, it's cash flow when you need it. And you probably are going to be surprised at how much cash flow is going to be there when you need it by investing in a single family rental property, which is one of the reasons I fell in love with this asset class many years ago. But now let's kick it up a notch. Now let's go into the C3X approach. So now we're going to assume that you are a client who is buying 3 properties in your JWB turnkey rental property portfolio. And oh, by the way, if you're a client who already owns these 3 properties, you've owned them for 5 years or 3 years, this absolutely applies to you too. There's no limitation on when you can start the C3X strategy. But let's just assume that you invested today. How's this going to look in the future? So let's say that you bought these 3 properties that has a market value of $800,000. Your initial investments, $320,000 to be able to own those properties, and your cash flows from those 3 properties over $4,000, $4,380 in your annual cash flow. And that's actually year 1, right? So that's right off the bat there. I should probably make mention there that $320,000, listen, that can be a lot for some people. That can not be a lot for some people. But what many people don't realize is that that financial engineering that we're talking about, many people have a significant amount of capital in retirement accounts that they're not happy with how it's performing. That same capital can be used to put into an asset like real estate and couple that with effective debt pay down strategies to create the income that you need in retirement. So, there's sources of capital here. This doesn't mean that you have to have 320 grand in your bank account today, but start thinking about those other sources of capital, and retirement accounts are a big source for a lot of our clients. So you got this $4,380 on an annual basis, and you're getting this year after year after year. And then you talk to JWB, you talk to the Passive Income Club, you listen to this, you took the class, and you say, listen, C3X is for me. Now let's start to look at how you're reshaping your financial goals and doing it much quicker. If you employ the C3X strategy here, you'll have your first mortgage paid off, not in 30 years, it'll be paid off in 14.5 years. By continuing that strategy, by paying that first one off, now you've created a whole lot of cash flow, and you add that to the mix. And now you pay off that second mortgage, and it's paid off, what is that, in 5 years there. So the first one took 15, the second one only takes 5. And then you free up a lot of additional cash flow because you don't have that first or second mortgage. And then you start to attack the third one. And the third mortgage is paid off in only roughly 3 additional years. So without C3X, you would have had 3 properties that would have been paid off in 30 years, right? With C3X and using that cash flow that you probably didn't need, wasn't really going to affect your life, that $100 a month or what have you. You could effectively put that towards this strategy, and you can have all 3 paid off in under 23 years, which for many people might be when they need that cash flow. And I started to put some numbers to it. If you start to think about how much rents are going to increase based on historical standards, and you start to think about how much mortgage payments you will not have to make in year 23, what you've created for yourself is an annual income stream of over $76,000 when you need it. It's not cash flow today is going to change your life, but it will change your life when you need it later on. And we haven't even gotten into the other profit centers. Oh, by the way, there's a whole bunch of other profit centers too. So this $76,000 income stream, I started to put some numbers to it as well. You know, right now, the average payout on a monthly basis for Social Security is about $1,700 a month, right? How are we going to overcome that as a country? Well, if you start to actually model it out, what's that going to be worth in like 20 years, 25 years? That's probably closer to about $4,000 a month. So we're already, all of us are probably starting out $4,000 behind the 8 ball today. But you could make a decision to reposition your assets, use the C3X strategy, and you can more than overcome that from a decision that you make today and just stick to the plan.